I would like to show another game from this great book because I really like how Sam Palatnik, Grandmaster Palatnik, writes, and I believe he can teach us a lot. The idea of the book is, as you can read, the Tarrasch Formula: one badly placed piece make your whole position bad. So it's about piece activity in the end, right? That often we don't realize how a badly placed piece can really destroy your entire game. So here we have game number 4, Rosenberg against Palatnik. It was played in Odessa in 1966. I mean, this is amazing. 1966. Wow. The title of the game is A Good Man is Hard to Find. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6. So this is a King's Indian defense, right? Knight f3, castle, bishop e2 and e5, castle, knight c6, d5, knight e7, and now white plays a kind of dubious move, at least for the author, because I think he wrote this book in 2003, so you must always check, because the computers have changed chess multiple times. In 2003, for example, AlphaZero and the neural networks didn't exist, so obviously what it could be considered wrong, maybe AlphaZero turned it on his head, right? So white played bishop g5. Here it says, in this game, white prepare a not very successful cocktail of two opening ideas in the King's Indian defense. The move bishop g5 is characteristic of the Petrosian system, with the main idea to create a pin on the black knight at f6. A pin, yeah, but the pin must be because the queen is there, right? For this reason it was necessary to play d4, d5, one move earlier, before the black knight came to c6. Okay, so he says this would be successful for this. Now the bishop on g5 does not accomplish the task that were to be solved on the diagonal h4, d8, namely to restrain black's initiative on the king side. The black knight on e7 shields the pin and gives his colleague an opportunity to improve his battle position. Then, in turn, black will have the opportunity to gain more space on the king's flank by means of a pawn advance in that sector. Yeah, generally in the King's Indian you do want to have a pawn advance on the king's side, because sometimes it happens that when you try to attack on the queen side with the King's Indian, it doesn't work, it's a little too slow. Let's see, however, what happens, okay? Because obviously I'm not an expert of the King's Indian. I've seen few games, and in fact I have a beautiful game based on Petrosian's games in the King's Indian, which I have shown in some videos. Okay, so let's see how black improve the position. Here obviously the author wrote a big notes that I'm not reading it all, because obviously I believe people should buy his book, but at the same time I want to show the games because I really like the games played by Palatnik. They are interesting. Clearly he has been a professional all his life, and he is someone we can learn from. Okay, so after bishop g5, I believe it's kind of simple to understand what Palatnik says, and the next move is h6, right? Now, you must keep in mind that generally grandmasters don't like to exchange bishops. So the next move is bishop h4, and here it says it is not good for white to exchange this bishop, because in that case it's not clear who will be responsible for taking care of business on the dark squares. But knight h5 is the problem, right? What do you do as white here? Well, I don't know. It's he plays knight e1 because obviously he attacks there, but this is obviously too late. Why? Because now black has achieved what he wanted, to go on f4 with that knight, right? This knight obviously has been promoted a grade. How long will it be possible for white to suffer the presence of the invader on f4? Well, knight d3, and guess what? g5. So this is really a success for black. Yeah, so yeah, the move bishop g5 wasn't so good, but probably a computer would have exchanged immediately, because he would have realized that what do you do with this at this point? I don't know. Bishop g3 and f5, and look at the mess. Look at the mess in which now white is, because this is terrible. f3, and now obviously we must return to the idea of two weaknesses illustrated in Capablanca's games. Now, one weakness has been fixed. You need to create a weakness somewhere else, right? And here Palatnik plays c5, saying it's not bad idea to supplement the territorial gains on the king side with something more on the queen side. Now, it is not favorable for white to play d takes c6, because black's other knight, held down at present, could be relocated to c6 and then d4. Wow. Where he would become as a big celebrity as his friend on f4. Yeah, obviously. So, it's kind of interesting. However, on the other hand, as you can see, white has gained an outpost. The problem is, how do you use the outpost? You can't, because there is no way to go there. So it's kind of useless as an outpost. Terrible situation for white already. So, since you don't want to exchange here, because otherwise you are opening lines and the attack is kind of sure, white played bishop e1. But as you can see, already at this point it's possible to say that black is better thanks to the space advantage. This doesn't mean that he's gonna win the game, You need to do something else. a6, knight f2. White finishes his preparation to neutralize the knight at e4. His last move controls the h3 square. Meanwhile, black undertakes action on the other flank. Curiously, the knight f4, on which white has focused so much attention, promotes the success of all black's strategic operation. From this follows one more interpretation of the Tarrasch Formula. One very well placed piece positively influences your whole game. So, what do you think black played after white played knight f2? I think it's kind of easy to understand, because, like I told you, you already have fixed this weakness. You need to create something on that side. So the move he played is b5. Black offers a pawn sacrifice, the acceptance of which would provide an opportunity to activate the complete power of the bishop c8. So he says that if you take back, he brings out the bishop c8, and that's an advantage for him. In this case, the knight on f4 would not hesitate to exchange himself for the white bishop e2 to ensure domination of the light squares for the black's army. Okay, so now it's more clear. So he says, if you take, he plays immediately this, and so you have a problem. Okay. So b3 is what white played, because, and here it shows a line what happens if white takes that, where black gains the initiative, which is more than compensation for a pawn. But obviously the problem here is that you need to do what at this point? Because b3 just proved that he's not going to exchange. He understood that exchange is not good, right? And so black continue with b4. And as you can see, black starts to control a lot of squares, and then probably it will open this file at the right moment. Knight a4, and black continue with knight eg6. Here it says, in contrast to white's misplaced knight on a4, black steers his knight on in exactly the opposite direction. So here white plays this g3, which made sense, but there is a problem. What do you think is the problem? What would you play if you were black? Because this is kind of interesting. Well, black played f takes e4, and I urge you to understand what happens in case white plays this, because this I think is interesting. I believe he could have put a diagram here, since it's a kind of critical moment, right? So let's see, g takes f4. What do you think black would play at this point? Because also this is very, very important. As you can see, this position is particularly good because it obliges you to do a lot of calculation, and this calculation over the board can cost you a lot of time when in a tournament. The move was e3, knight e4, and then this is the idea, boom, and this gives black a beautiful position, and so as you can see, it's a big problem, right? So because this is now is a pass pawn protected, and look at this, look at this. So it's really a problem here for white. And notice, when a pawn reaches this kind of deep into your formation, your territory, oh, it's terrible. However, it's an interesting position to play. Okay, let's return back. Okay, more or less we were here when Palatnik played this great move, which is f takes e4, and here it seems you cannot play also knight takes e4, because black would play knight h3 check. So white played f takes e4, because we saw that to take the knight it's terrible for white, and at this point you cannot keep it there anymore, so you have to exchange it. And of course he does it with knight takes e2, queen takes e2. As you can see, Palatnik says, notice that white has this piece out of the game. It's true, at the same time the piece cannot work, cannot enter, because there is the queen. I don't know if when the queen will not be there, if he will be able to create damage, who knows. So let's see how the game continues, because clearly it's kind of interesting. So what do you play now if you are black? Because you have to take a decision, and what I really want is you to think when you watch this game, otherwise you're wasting your time. Clearly this is a position that you need to take a decision on where to go. What are you going to do? Because we are at move 21, by the way, we are at move 21. So for the traditional value, the opening wouldn't be complete, because we didn't develop the queen, we didn't develop this bishop, the rooks are not connected, and blah blah blah. But obviously this is already a middle game position, and so you need to have a plan on to do something, right? The weakness on this clearly is gone, and now you need to create something more. What are you going to play? Palatnik played rook a7, which I believe it's really a good move, because as you can see is trying to use the open file, right? Bishop d2, rook a f7, and now knight g4. And here again I urge you to pause the video and find what is black next move. Why do I say that? Because obviously if you think to exchange the rooks, you are mistaken, obviously, because if you exchange the attacking pieces, how are you going to bring out the attack and kill the enemy king, right? You can't. So there must be another move here, but which one is it? Honestly, it's kind of surprising and beautiful. Here we go. Boom! Knight f4. I mean, I don't know. Obviously is what the position need, but would have I played it? I don't know. G takes f4, E takes f4. As you can see, once more we see this pawn chain that is all going through and opening the diagonal for that bishop. Obviously here the threat is this, so you need to be kind of careful what you do, right? Yeah, and notice also this. This is now really out of the game. It's terrible. So that is a bad place piece. Okay, so let's see what white did. Knight f2. And again, now you need to decide what you do. What are you going to play in this position? This is a critical moment in the game, like before when it was played knight f4. These are critical moments in which one must act and be strong. The move is g4. And why is such a great move, right? Because what do you think happens if you play knight takes g4? If you play knight takes g4, the move is f3. And it's a problem, right? Because you cut away that knight. So let's see. Rook a e1, and now you need to bring another piece on the attack, right? We have 1, 2, rook a1 is also made to remove a rook, but obviously the problem is the d4 square. And as you can see, black could afford to play knight f4 because this is out of the game. So they are playing in any case with 2 knights less, right? Both of the sides. If this becomes active at a certain point, like if you would have made the exchange of rooks, yeah, maybe not a good idea, right? Here he played queen h4. And of course now the game is nearly over because you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, 2 pawns, and they are all going to attack on the king side, right? White played knight d3, bishop d4, another piece that goes into the game against the king, rook f2, and then of course there is g3, king h1, and bishop takes f2, and the game is over. Now probably what you want to know is what happened if white played this, right? And that's a good question, but here I think you should do your own analysis because this is very, very important. But you can feel that the situation is nearly over because you understand he could also bring this. If he plays this, it's a mess. It's clearly a mess. But however, try to analyze it and see what you would do in case white would have played that move, and eventually try to play. Remember, try to always play the final positions of the game against the computer, because that will help you a lot, okay? So, but instead in the game he played this, and of course after this it's not that you really have a big choice, right? I mean, after this, and tack. And again, this is still kind of out of the game, so well. Notice also that, of course, there is a checkmate here, but also if this comes here, then it can go there. It's a mess. This is a game over moment. However, it's a beautiful game by Palatnik that has illustrated the idea of how a piece out of a game can actually destroy the whole game. However, white was very passive. Once he made the mistake of putting the bishop on g5, letting black goes on f4. So I hope you will enjoy this book because it's really a nice book full of games that illustrate the point. Then of course, if you will be able to make that in your own games, I don't know, that's a little more difficult. But as you can see, watching the video, asking yourself questions will help you to improve your chess. Thank you very much for watching.